a Monarch Watch Conservation Specialist do? Since you want me to be one, what's the plan? Will you give me instructions? How does this work? And he said,
She
oh
didn't.
no, you
I
just
think
keep
either she or
doing
Audrey saw the note.
what you've been doing. And when you see something new that needs to be done, do it. And basically, to become a Monarch Watch Conservation Specialist, you have to come to Chip's attention and get an invitation. But you start by simply doing the work of a Monarch Watch Conservation Specialist, being out there educating about monarchs and conservation of monarchs and the plants they need. So I think that's about it. But, I had no idea that that was coming when he called. Carol Pasternak, you're muted.
Well, I'm going to tell you why I'm muted, because I had to type something. And every time I type something, I get a note from Bev, who's not here anyway, that she can hear me typing. So I have learned to mute while I'm typing. And in my next Zoom, I'm going to learn to unmute after I finish typing. So if I understand you correctly, Carol, the only way to become a Monarch Watch Conservation Specialist is to make enough noise in your own area that you get the attention of Chip Taylor and he personally invites you.
That's correct, as far as I know. And some people have made more noise than others. Some people sort of chased him down and got his attention. But Chip Taylor is the founder of Monarch Watch. I saw that in the chat box, so I'm going to answer that. And it is up to him who he invites. Now, he does have about 24 of us now spread out throughout the US and one in Canada. We got one in Canada now. But we don't want them all in one region. They need to be in useful places.
And what useful place are you in? And how did you make enough noise to attract his attention?
I'm still not sure, but I live in North Texas, very close to the Oklahoma border, a little bit north of Dallas. And when that awful bar chart came out showing the precipitous drop in the monarch numbers, I freaked out like a lot of people did and said, well, what can I do? And I began contacting ranchers that had milkweed and picking milkweed seed and getting milkweed seed to Monarch Watch and working on the plant end of the equation, because I've always been a plant lover. So I really work with the prairie plants that monarchs need in our region.
Okay, very good. I'm going to come back to you soon and ask other questions, but right now I would like to go to Debbie Jackson. Tell us where you're from, Debbie, and why did Chip Taylor come knocking on your door? It's not because you are raising chickens.
No, but I did raise chickens. Actually, back in 2010, 2009, when I discovered the population was getting really low, I started going to area schools. I'd been raising monarchs on my own since I was about 11. And I had spent the last 2 years researching duplex and biology and really upping my game in monarch biology, going to area schools, garden clubs, senior centers, doing programs, giving out caterpillars. And another conservation specialist, Diane Pruden, who worked closely with Chip, she would go to Mexico and buy the tags from the local people in the sanctuaries. And she was working with Chip, and he was talking with her, mulling over the idea in 2010 about putting together the conservation specialists. And he was trying to find people who were doing outreach things. And she told him what I was doing in the schools. And at that time, I had seen hundreds of children in schools and garden clubs and so forth. And so she recommended me to him, and that's how I got onto his radar. It really wasn't what I was doing, because I was doing things quietly in the area of Michigan here, but it worked out that way. And it actually, what's kind of funny is it took us about a year to figure out what name we were going to call ourselves. Do you remember that, Gail? We kind of talked about that for a year, and in 2012, we joined together. And you were at that uh, big conservation, what was that, a convention in Minneapolis?
Oh, I was there. Yes, yes.
In June.
Was that the
Yes.
beginning of the Monarch Watch Conservation
That was the
Specialist
first
movement?
time we met each other. We met in
Oh, cool.
the rooms there, and we got to see most of us at the time. I think there were 12 or 15 of us then, and Chip has continued to add more people.
And remind me, when was the first Monarch Conservation yeah, it's a long word, crowned?
Well, in June of 2012, when we were at a Monarch convention, it was Don was there. I remember Don Davis was there. Gail, you were there. Gail,
You mean at the Monarch Biology, that meeting? That's
Yes.
when the first time that it happened?
That's when we got together as a group, met each other because we're all over the country.
Right, right.
And kind of gelled and got to meet Chip personally.
Okay.
And we have been emailing each other before and after that, of course, but we kind of got together then. And I'm not sure if too many of us, now regionally, because I'm in Southeast Michigan and there's actually 4 of us, I know pretty much everybody that's here. And I know some of the ladies in Ohio. I've met Rhonda in Illinois and shared things with her. There isn't any conservation specialists in Iowa, but I'm from Iowa and I go back there frequently and I work with Iowans and I consult on a Facebook page, Monarchs of Eastern Iowa. It's a private group. Don't even ask to get in if you're not an Iowan, but they have 1,600 members sharing monarch information, which is outstanding in that area because that's agricultural cropland where sprays are airily dousing the fields with all kinds of nasty things for bugs and wildlife. And they're doing remarkable progress in reserving. There's
Okay, Debbie, I want to move, I'm going to come back to you, but I want to move on to Gail. And please, Gail, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and how did you grab Chip's attention and what is your major project?
Right. I actually met Chip, I'm trying to think, I think it was in 2007 in a Texas conference, a training on citizen science. And I remember at the time, there was really, I was from Arizona and there wasn't really anything going on in Arizona. And so the tagging of Southwest Monarch Study had started under Chris Klein by then, but I hadn't joined them yet. It was just a couple months after that I did. But I think the main interest was my interest in monarch conservation. I've been a gardener all my life. Everything I want to do, is looking at plants and what do we need to get in the ground. And so this just became the beginning of my conversation with him that eventually led to the Monarch Conservation Specialist. But along the way, when Chris Klein decided to move back to Ohio, we had to make a decision with the Southwest Monarch Study. Do we continue the study? Do we not? And I'm just so grateful we did. We have a great board of directors. We have a lot of people tagging for us in the Southwest states. Through all the tagging, we've been able to show that monarchs from Arizona go both to Mexico and California. And there's some good indications that monarchs from Utah are heading down to Mexico as well. We've recovered some of their tags in the Phoenix area. We do know they go to California. So we constantly learn new things.
So in your project that you do kind of in association with Monarch Watch, you've actually discovered a place that monarchs go that we didn't know before.
Right, and some of this tagging was going on during this whole time period, but we continue to learn new things. Just the other day, we talked about what happens to monarchs during the winter in the Phoenix area. And why are some of them, we can tag some of them during the winter out here and they're still alive 90 days later, which would definitely indicate non-breeders. What is happening out here that would keep that from happening. So it's constant. It's not like, okay, we're done. We always find something new. We also
That's
have
very
an
exciting.
episode.
New discoveries. It's so exciting. You're doing such good work.
There's a lot of people doing great work. I'm just lucky to work with them.
Okay, then. Okay, I want to talk to you more. I just want to make sure that I introduce the last of our Monarch Watch Conservation Specialists for the evening. Okay, now everybody repeat after me. Monarch Watch Conservation Specialist. Okay, there we go. So, Susan, tell us where you're from and how did you get Chip's attention? What were you doing?
I'm from the Atlanta, Georgia area. And I volunteer for an organization called Monarchs Across Georgia that was established in the early 2000s after Karen Oberhauser had come to Georgia to do a workshop for educators here. And I've been involved in that organization since 2003, when I visited the monarch colonies in Mexico with Dr. Bill Calvert and just became hooked on monarchs. So we do educator workshops. We have a pollinator habitat certification program. And 3 years ago, we took over the symbolic migration project from Journey North. So those are the big things that we do.
Right, now that we have everybody introduced, I'm going to start with you and let you tell more of the story of that project, which is so exciting that you do with Journey North. So tell us about that.
So I'm hoping everybody knows Journey North. It used to be an independent 501c3 organization, but 3 years ago, the majority of it was moved to the University of Wisconsin-Madison Arboretum, and that's where they track monarchs, migration, eggs, larvae, blah, 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 all of it. But there was one part that the university was not willing to take over because of the logistics, and that was the symbolic migration. And that's when Elizabeth Howard called me and said, Susan, I know that you already have a relationship with Estela Romero in Mexico, because she was delivering books to the same schools that she visited with symbolic migration as part of a literacy program that we were doing. And she said, if you would take this over, we would really appreciate it. Otherwise, it will be in the smoke. It will not continue. And I said, I can't let it die. Sure, I'll take it over. We don't have any funds to do it, but we will find a way. So just to explain the symbolic migration a little bit, students from all over Canada and the United States make paper butterflies, and they mail them to my house now. And we sort them, and I send them down to Mexico to Estela in Angangueo, and she delivers what we call the class ambassador, the representative butterfly from the classroom, to students in Mexico in the schools that surround the 3 major colonies. And along with those class ambassadors that bring well wishes from the North here, she delivers an environmental lesson that has to do with monarchs in some way, that they're pollinators, or that it's really important for us to conserve the forest area where they live. And then in the spring, those butterflies migrate back to me, and I redistribute them to all the participants. It's a big job.
And what kind of reporting do you get from Estela on that?
So Estela does her reporting on a blog site, symbolicmigration.org. She records which class ambassadors are delivered to each school. takes pictures of them, and gives something about that community, what's going on in that area. Just a sort of historical and traditional things to give people a taste of what Mexican life is like there.
And so kids both in the States who are doing this mailing and in Mexico are getting better emotionally connected with each other?
Well, the unfortunate part is that many of the schools in Mexico don't have internet service. So they're not connecting directly with the students in the United States and Canada, but they are connecting with Estella. And she's bringing the messages to them.
Okay, then I am going to move on, but many of us want to know more about this program. So can you please put a link in the chat? And it's a good idea to monitor the chat all the time because people will post links and then you have to click on them right away. And that way, after the meeting, you will be able to check out these links. So if you could put that link in, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you.
And I would like to go to Debbie. And Debbie, you know, how much time do you spend fulfilling your duties, volunteer duties for Monarch Watch, and what do you do?
Well, in the springtime, late May and June, going to schools, it's not really a lot of time, maybe 4 to 5 hours. Well, probably 2 to 3 hours really going to a school. I do have to prep materials. I like to leave materials with the teachers in classrooms. If available, I will leave them with a caterpillar or two so that they can finish rearing it in the classroom. But there's not many caterpillars available in May and June as far north as Michigan as I live now. So we're more successful with that in the fall and providing caterpillars for classrooms at that time. During the winter, sometimes I do guard groups, but I maybe 2 to 3 hours for the programs, and the number of programs, sadly, this last year have completely just almost disappeared. But in the fall, in August and September, I have a local Monarch Festival in this area. I was able to find a wonderful nature center, a 6-acre former farmland that's been converted into a nature classroom. And with the help of 30 volunteers to help with the had in the fall 2009, 1,000 visitors in 3 hours.
Okay, you
Coming
froze.
to the
You
Monarch
froze,
Fest and listening.
Debbie. You froze right when
Sure.
you were saying how many visitors. How many?
We had 1,000 visitors.
1,000 visitors. What an achievement!
In 3 hours. We gave caterpillars to teachers. We gave out caterpillars and milkweed. We tagged butterflies. We tagged a little over 100. It's hard to have a butterfly for each and every person. So we would have family groups tag one butterfly together. And I had retired science teachers giving programs on monarch biology. We turned this into quite a festival. We had 12 food trucks. We had the director at this nature center has her fingers in a lot of pots, and she was able to pull a lot of community people together. And we had also native milkweed for sale to sell. And we had to charge nominal fees on some of these things in order to recoup some of our expenses. Because it was such a big festival, for example, you don't think of these things unless you manage these sort of items. She had to rent porta-johns to handle the capacity of all of these people, and that wasn't free. So we had to bring in a little money in order to take care of those kind of costs and advertising. But we made a treasure hunt out of it. Everybody that came in, or every family that came in got a map, and there were different locations on the map, and we would trace them around the facility, going to different objects and different places of interest. And they thought they got a prize at the end, but they didn't. But it gave them a purpose of moving around this 6 acres and seeing things. It's wonderful. I can't do it myself.
Yeah,
No.
that sounds like enormous fun.
It is. I
Somehow
have to
you
take
managed
many
to-
days.
You must be doing something right if you manage to scare up 30 volunteers. Now, if anybody wants to run a Monarch Festival, I can send you a link to how to run a Monarch Festival. But Debbie, did you have a template to do this? Or did you make up your own checklist for how to run a Monarch Festival?
It grew over the years. This was my 6th one that I put together. I got the idea from another person on Dplex. Does everybody know what Dplex is? Dplex is the Monarch Watch Forum. You go to monarchwatch.org and you sign into Dplex, and everybody can communicate on Monarch topics. One woman, Judy in New York, said she had a Monarch Festival, and I thought, I can do that. So I just collected some caterpillars and held on to some of the monarchs. And our local park, we had some signage and just had a spontaneous Monarch Festival in conjunction with the local farmers market. I think we had 400 or 500 visitors the first year over a span of 4 or 5 hours. And it just grew from there and developed. In fact, we had to leave that park because we didn't have parking and space to manage all the people.
Now, Debbie, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Sure.
let me put you on the spot.
Okay.
If anybody in this Zoom wanted to try their hand at running a Monarch Festival, and after they got the template that I send them, would you be able, if you got enough time, I know you work full time, to maybe help them a little bit in the planning and give them some do's and don'ts and warnings?
I certainly can. My email, I'll put it in the chat box. But late August is not a good time to try to get a response from me, because that's when my own festival is in fruition.
Okay, so just to let everybody know, if you want to get something done or ask a question, you ask someone who's busy. And Debbie Jackson is the perfect example of this. She's busy with so many things, and yet she has offered to help you run a Monarch Festival. And I'll let you know, you have to start 8, 10, 12 months in advance with your planning.
You really need to be thinking of it 4 to 5 months in advance, because it depends on what you want to do. If you just want to do something with like just the quantity of a school and just do something through K through 6th grade or something like that. If you're in charge, you get to control what happens. We have found that we need to incorporate local wild ones groups, which is a native plant society throughout the United States, or find a local native nursery in order to get milkweed. This is a Monarch Festival is the perfect opportunity to encourage people to create way stations in their own yards, because they like them and they want to help, and they ask what they can do. Well, the answer is way station, right? But in order to have the plants, you have to plan that up ahead of time. So it is something that the wheels have to start turning a little bit ahead of time. I teach a lot of classes, and that's where a lot of my volunteers come from, is from the people I meet in the classes. And there are a lot of people here in this own audience who have recreationally raised monarchs, and enough to tutor people. We also, when we give out caterpillars, we also have a quick little 1-page rearing caterpillars tips and things to look for about eclosure and stuff, so forth.
Okay, so here you go. Everybody who's listening, you're interested in monarchs, and you're going to start your first Monarch Festival this fall when they're migrating, okay? Because with any luck, will be able to get out of the house everywhere by then. Maybe even without a mask, but let's not push it. Okay, so you're going to plan your festivals for September. You've got to start tomorrow and start small. So your first year, you'll get a table at some fair, and you'll call it a Monarch Festival. You bring in your volunteers, and then the following year, you're going to do it like Debbie does, bringing in all kinds of people with all kinds of tables and all kinds of activities, and it'll be awesome. I am going to move now to Carol Clark, and I would like to ask you how you spend your time doing your duties. And I understand that issues will be referred to you that come in to perhaps other Monarch Watch conservation specialists, or that come into Monarch Watch, and they can take advantage of the local people, and that Monarch Watch sends concerns about Texas from ranchers and landowners about how to be more monarch friendly. So Carol, can you talk to us about that?
Sure. I spend a lot of time on the phone and on emails, giving advice to landowners about what they can plant. Sometimes they're starting from scratch. Sometimes they already have a good place and they don't even know it, but they need someone who knows the local plants to go out and look, or to identify a whole batch of pictures for them and then give advice about how to proceed with their land. So sometimes I do that. I also take questions about lists. What do I need to be planting in my place or eliminating in my place, things like that. And I run the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas committee out of the Native Plant Society, which is sort of a joint venture of Monarch Watch and the Native Plant Society of Texas. So for part of my year, I'm administering grants for that program for Monarch way stations as well. But as Chip said, there is no set template. So you do what you feel needs to be done. And at different times of year, for me, that's very different. I may be collecting seeds or doing ranch consultations or working on those grants. And I do a lot of public speaking as well.
Oh, tell us about that.
Well, I think I had 33 presentations between January and the end of March this year. So it was actually a busy year in spite of it being a virtual year.
Wow.
And most of them are about native plants and pollinators in some way. I speak on native bees. I speak on monarchs, monarch way stations, planting for monarchs, managing prairies for pollinators, lots of different things, but they all come back to native plants and the animals that use them.
Okay, then. Well, I have another question for you, Carol. I understand that Monarch Watch supports you with such things as business cards. Can you tell us what else Monarch Watch supplies you with to help you do your job?
Sure. Well, at some point, I had so many events going at once that I had to have an away team, spare people that knew what they needed to know to go out and run an event. So I actually got 2 banners, one for me and one for my away team. So we could set up 2 weekend events at one time. And that banner will say Monarch Watch. They also have a selection of posters to help you explain the life cycle very quickly. If you laminate those, they're durable outside, so you can run an event with minimal supplies. And a shirt, you get a shirt like this one that says Monarch Watch on it. And so not too much else other than that, except access to all kinds of information. And of course, if you are a specialist, Chip will answer your calls and he will he will answer your questions.
All right, now I want one of the other conservation specialists to unmute and jump in and tell us what kind of print materials you get from Monarch Watch to distribute at your presentations and events.
Excuse me, I apologize. I sound very grumpy, but I just had a similar experience with the Missouri Prairie Foundation, which had an event like this on planting. It said, grow native. And I have a backyard and I have milkweed and I have asclepias and other things that are local. I know how to do that. I'm a dancer, arts integration specialist. I'll put my email in if anybody wants me to. I've done residencies on monarchs in the schools. Okay. But you're saying meet the monarch. And so far, this is only for specialists, not for backyard people by me. So I can read myself, but I just want to make that statement. And if you wish, you're amazing. I am so grateful to you all completely. But I think I'm going to go now because this is just not what I was looking for, nor for the future, how it was advertised. So,
well, I'm
best
sorry
of
you're
luck to everybody.
I'm sorry you're disappointed.
And
we
not
will,
in what you're doing, and I am grateful I do other things, but thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to put my email in there in case anybody's interested in any kind of residency. I just.
Well, thank you for that comment. It's hard to please everybody all the time. And we were in the middle of somebody unmuting and like Susan or Gail and telling us what materials you have to give to people like Alice who come to your events.
Okay, for example, the brochures for how to make a monarch way station that are available. That's a one that's always on our tables. There's several about information about Monarch. Some of the things you could get from the Monarch joint venture brochures, Monarch Watch can provide for us as well. So we'll make a list of what we need based on our expectations of what kind of tables we're covering that summer or meetings we have.
Okay, I have a few more questions, and there may be some questions from the audience. So put up your hand if you have a question for one of our Monarch Watch conservation specialists. And
Carol, I have a quick comment. I see that another one of our Monarch Watch conservation specialists has been watching. And I'd just like to give a shout out to Ba Ray, who is a wonderful author and illustrator and has been here quiet all along.
yeah, Ba tends to be quiet, and last time I made a fool of myself answering some question that she could have answered much better. So I'm not going to do that again. From now on, if anybody asks me a tough question, I'm just going to refer it straight to Ba. But she likes to be, you know, in the quiet in the background. Hi, Ba, it's great to see you. Don't let me answer any questions anymore. Okay, I am going to, I'm going to look to see who has some questions. To put your hand up, I'm going to go to gallery. And I'm looking to see if anybody has a question. And in the meantime, while you're thinking of your questions, I want to ask each one of you, unmute, whether your family is on board with your work for Monarch Butterflies. But before you answer that, we do have a hand up. And I'm not going to ask all four of you before the hand up. So let's go to the hand up. That's you, Chip. We are very honored to have the founder of Monarch Watch here who's done all this hiring of people and has a question. Go ahead, Chip.
Well, I have really a little commentary. First of all, I want to acknowledge not only that it's Ba Ray here as a monarch conservation specialist who has joined this gathering here, but Ilse Gavard is also on. And I saw that, excuse me, that Sandy Schwinn is on as well. So we're represented here. We have 7 people who have been monarch conservationists who are monarch conservation specialists with us tonight. And I've got to tell you all that I don't always succeed in my requests. Carol, I have asked you to be a monarch conservation specialist. I even asked Don Davis to be a monarch conservation specialist. And I asked the McCurdy's to become a monarch conservation specialist. And I can't remember, but I may have even asked Marcy Hawkins to be one. But anyway, I don't succeed all the time. That's I'm not always that persuasive, but I have made a lot of mistakes with Monarch Watch. We all make mistakes, but I haven't made mistakes with any of these people I have selected to be Monarch Conservation Specialists. They have all done really great things, and I'm very appreciative of all the great work that they've done. And you know, they all deserve a hand.
All right, well, I'm going to have to respond to that. And my job, Chip, and I know this is being recorded, it's not to actually do the work. It's to get somebody else to do the work. And that's why when you asked me, I referred you to Darlene Burgess, who luckily is now doing the work. And I hope that everybody else who can't do the work referred you to the right person to actually do the work. But it was a great honor to be asked. And yeah. So I would like the other Monarch Watch Conservation Specialist to unmute, tell us where you're from, and say hi. That would be Ilse. Unmute and say hi and tell us where you're
Hi.
from.
I'm in Kalamazoo, Michigan, one of the 4 in Michigan, but on the other side of the state. The other 3 of them are on the east side of the state, and I'm on the west side of the state. I think I was one of the original batch of Monarch Conservation Specialists that Chip asked to join, asked me to join, and I was very honored to do so.
Well, thank you so much for doing that work. I wish we could have had everybody on, and maybe in the fall, when I start up again, we'll interview more Monarch Watch Conservation Specialists. And who else did you say, Chip? Sandra?
Sandy Schwinn, yes.
Sandy, do you want to introduce yourself? Okay, and who else?
That was it.
Okay, so
I'd
we're
like
going
to ask a question. You asked for questions.
Yeah, go
So I
ahead.
have a question and I've been waiting very patiently and I typed it 3 times. So I have a question for all you folks that raise monarchs. I've been taught that it's not a good idea to raise monarchs because they get lost or something. So here's my question. What is the benefit of raising monarchs? Do they find their way to Mexico? Do they get confused? And do they reproduce or not? Thank you.
Who wants to jump? Which specialist wants to jump in and take that question?
I'd love Chip to answer that question.
Yeah, I can answer that question. Literally thousands of reared monarchs have made it to Mexico. We're writing a paper about that right now. And it's thousands. We have about almost 2,000 recoveries of reared monarchs in Mexico. Surely monarchs get lost, everything gets lost. But you know, the key thing that we're going to reveal about all of this is its timing and location and quality. You have to raise quality monarchs. They have to be released at the right time, and they have to be released in the right place to get to Mexico. Now, while I say all of those things are true, that monarchs are getting to Mexico that are reared, it's much lower than for wild monarchs. And the reasons are for all of those things that I've just said. People are releasing monarchs that are not quality monarchs. They're releasing monarchs that are too late, and they're releasing monarchs in the wrong place. So all of those things could be improved if people would want to improve them, but we are not pushing people to raise monarchs for Mexico, to get to Mexico.
No.
For the reason that they have to not only get to Mexico, but they have to survive the winter and they have to come back to Texas to reproduce. And the probabilities of that being successful are pretty low. And the probabilities of raising monarchs to actually improve the population is also very, very low. So if people are going to do this, they have to recognize that they're doing it for education. They're doing it for kind of monarch rescue, things that would be eaten by predators otherwise, but they're not doing it for the reasons of saving the monarch population. That's not the way it works.
Well, thank you.
Right.
That was very instructive, and it did reinforce some of the information that I had heard, that it was not very, that it can contribute to their demise if you don't do it the right way. So thank you.
Well, you could look at it another way, and that would be that if you let them be eaten by predators, they would die anyway. So, you know, it's
True.
it's neither bad nor good, but it isn't really going to help the population to do this. That's the point that probably needs to be made the most.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
I've been seeing that question go by and thinking, oh, that deserves a big, good answer. And I can't type that fast. And so thank you, Chip, for doing that for us.
And I raise monarchs in order to give them out so that people can see the life cycle, or have the butterfly leave their home and then become intrigued and become enamored with their beauty, and then do something. So like creating a way station garden, stop using pesticides, doing things to improve the nature of their environment. So wild monarchs can come into their yard, lay eggs and reproduce and create more monarchs naturally. But if people don't have a relationship with monarchs, they don't care. Nobody can care about something they don't know about. So when I give a little caterpillar to a child with a little piece of paper that has basic rearing instructions, they watch it go through the cycle, they watch the butterfly come out, they release it, they become attached to it, or they can, not everybody does, but a lot of people do. And like all of us, we become interested in the survival of the species. And in the long run, it's the survival of our species too, because the more that we can protect the natural world, the more we're protecting everything on the planet.
Right, that was a really, really good answer, because the raising of monarchs, raising 100 or 1,000 for the purpose of increasing the population for them to go to Mexico, this is not what we want to do. But raising whatever quantity we can to spread the word to as many people as we can, then they tear up their lawns and put in native plant gardens. They tell their friends, they get excited. They find out that oh my God, they've just bulldozed the field where I used to have my milkweed. What am I going to do about that? And then these kids become politicians who want to save the environment. So the raising of any butterfly or anything else in nature leads to the conservation of the whole system, and perhaps our children will have clean air and water because of this. It's all about the big picture. And some of you are kind of like waving like this to ask a question. It's hard for me to see everybody doing that. But if you mouse down to the bottom where it says reactions, and then you see raise hand like I'm doing now, you see the little raised hand there, then it's easier for me to see you. Now, Mary Thompson, for example, she both waved and I saw it, and now has put up the little yellow hand. So Mary, you go with your question, and then Bruce.
I had also typed it in the chat. The lab that designed the large seed separator in the metal trash can.
Yes, we did that. We've designed several of them.
Okay.
The first one, if you remember your grandmother's ice cream maker, it was like that.
So my husband built one last year, and we were able to separate over a gallon of seeds this year. I just have trouble with the long spindle bending, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Well, it takes several several, it took us several times to design this thing correctly. So
And
yeah,
have you
just
found
have to keep
any,
working at it. Right.
have you
Go
found
ahead.
any use for all the fluff?
Yes, it can be made into pillows.
Okay.
Totally. And there's a company who in fact makes down jackets and pillows and all kinds of products with milkweed floss. It used to be used, because it floats, to put in life jackets. It's also used to clean up spills because it absorbs oil. But if you need to restuff your own down jacket because all the feathers came out, it's highly useful. Make sure you don't get it in the house, because put your hand up if you know what happens when you get milkweed floss all over the house. Okay, Bruce, your turn.
Thanks very much. I'm new to this organization. I'm a retired physician. I've had a chance to go down to Mexico to visit with Tom Emmel, the late Tom Emmel, who was the emeritus director of the Lepidoptera research facility at the University of Florida, which has the largest collection of Lepidoptera in the world, I understand now. My question is, what about Florida? How do we know whether they're migrators or are they recirculating in the area? Should we be tagging, and does Journey North or does the Monarch Watch rather have a presence in Florida?
Well, this program isn't supposed to be about me, but I guess I'll have to answer this question. Florida is an enigma because at the southern tip of Florida, there is a population of monarchs that doesn't migrate. And genetically, it's closely related to Caribbean monarchs. Now, that's a mystery because monarchs flow into southern Florida every fall and through the winter. And what we don't understand is how that population can remain genetically distinct in spite of the probable hybridization that would be taking place with the northern monarchs. And we don't even understand the extent, that is the geographic extent of that southern Florida population. How many counties does it live in? Is it just the southern 3 or 4 counties, or does it extend up to, say, a third of the peninsula? Now, the thing that we have never been able to understand, and I get questions about this, and just had a question this past week about this, why don't we know more about Florida? And the answer is difficult to generate because we have had tagging programs in the spring in Florida to try to answer the question as to whether monarchs move north out of Florida in the spring, and we have been unable to answer that question. We just don't know what happens to Florida in the springtime. We know in the fall that monarchs flow in there. They breed 3 or 4 generations. They don't stay non-reproductive. And the OE builds up, populations crash. And then we don't know what happens in the spring. So it really looks like, in an ecological sense, that Florida is a sink, which means that more monarchs go in than come out. But we don't know that for sure. We just are speculating that that's the case because we have not been able to get hard evidence that says that Florida really is contributing to the monarch population in the spring.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm unmuted. Okay. I am going to, in one moment, ask people if they have any announcements. But first, I have been told that not everybody has the yellow hand feature that they can put up. So I am going to go to gallery view. And if you have a question, wave like this, because it's really hard for me to follow all the chat in the chat. So wave like that, and I will recognize you. Or while we're making the announcements, oh, there's Will. Okay, we can simply, we'll have a few announcements, and if you have something that you really need to say with an announcement or a question, you'll be able to do it. But right now, Will, unmute yourself because I see you waving. Is there anybody else who's waving? Wait a minute, I'm only on one screen. Anybody else waving? I don't see anybody else waving. So if anybody else is waving, then I've missed it, and you'll have to unmute right after this question and yell out your question. Okay, we have a young person with us, and his name is Will, and he's got a question. Go ahead, Will.
Okay, so this is kind of a statement, but okay, so I think maybe when I was 8, so when I think it was 8, no, 7, my grandpa was weeding and he accidentally weeded some milkweed and there's caterpillars on it. And one time, well, like in all of there's a lot of caterpillars and only one survived, and he gave it to me. And then I started liking raising butterflies, and then now every year I do Monarch Watch and I raise butterflies.
Well,
And
that is fantastic, Will, and we look forward to seeing you in 15 years as the youngest Monarch Watch Conservation Specialist. I'm sure that Chip is taking notes right now. Sid, would you like to introduce yourself and briefly tell us what you do and put your website in the chat? Sid just joined us. Okay, well, Sid, if you decide later to put your website in the chat and introduce yourself, that would be great. Does anyone right now?
Hello. I'm here, Carol. Sorry, what do you say? My
Sid,
audio was a
put
bit
your
off.
website in the chat. This is Sid.
Okay.
Sid runs outstanding trips to see the monarchs in Mexico. And tell us what the dates of your trip next year and why your trips are so good. And I personally know people who have taken his trips and they're absolutely fantastic. But let's hear it from you, Sid.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, we are running 3 trips next year. They are all catered for small groups. No, it's only 12 people maximum. So, and we are 2 guides guiding it. So attention to detail is important for us. We visit the communities in Angangueo and Valle de Bravo. And I think it's an amazing tour. Let me tell you, the dates are the 3 last weeks of February, exactly 13th, 20th, and 27th. That will be the 3 dates. We are choosing late February because it's best is when the monarchs are starting getting active, feed on the flowers, mate, and start getting ready for the journey north. So yeah, please join us. We'll be more than happy to take care of you guys.
Well, thank you,
We know
Sid.
what we're doing down
Sid
here.
actually goes to Valle de Bravo. Not a lot of the trips go there. He goes to 3 sanctuaries, a small group, and he is a local, and he knows everybody and everything.
Yes, correct. And we actually have an extra day just in case we didn't get lucky in one of the spaces to visit a 4th one if necessary. So yeah, everything for you guys.
Okay,
all right.
It's also your least expensive option, and it's outstanding. Who else? Thank you, Sid. Who else?
Sid, put the link, please, Sid, in the chat.
Yes, I'm gonna do that right now. Thank you very much, everyone. Keep
Are
up
there
the
any? Are
hard
there
work
any?
in the north.
Are there any other announcements? Go ahead, Don. Unmute yourself, Don. Unmute yourself.
There we go. Thanks, Carol. I just wanted to acknowledge a couple of other longtime monarch conservationists with us on this call. Mia Monroe is exceptionally well known for her work in California and monarch conservation, and Thanksgiving Day counts there. And Elijo Garcia Serrano from the Monarch Fund in Michoacan, Mexico. So welcome aboard.
Okay, from the Monarch, like Butterfly Fund?
Fundo Monarca,
oh, that one, Fondo Monarca.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
so there's a couple of organizations that work right in Mexico to conserve the monarchs, being Fondo Monarca and Monarch Butterfly Fund, and they are both worthy of our support. And when we look at where are we going to put our charity dollars, I hope you'll all look at some of it going to Monarch Conservation. And Dawn, if you would like to put the website of Monarch Butterfly Fund in there, it is run by all the who's who in the Monarch business. You'll look at the board of directors and you will recognize names. Anyone else before I close the meeting?
Yes, I have a quick question. Bruce Shepard mentioned this man, Tom, that he went to meet, and I did not catch the last name. It went by too fast. Would you please type that name in the chat? Thank you.
Okay, and that's for Fred, did you say? For
No, Bruce Shepard.
Bruce, okay, Bruce Shepard.
When he talked about a man named Tom, but
Okay.
did
No,
not catch
Tom
the-
Emil is deceased. He was the
Oh,
emeritus director of the National Museum in University of Florida in Florida.
Oh, right, and he took wonderful tour groups to the
I went on it.
overwintering grounds. Brenda Dietzig used to go on them, and she had nothing but superlatives. So I want to thank our guests tonight. That was absolutely wonderful. Carol, Debbie, Susan, and Debbie, Carol, Carol,
Gail.
Susan, and Gail. All of them. This was really different and really wonderful. And I'm going to tell everybody, well, you know what? We'll give the last quick word to Craig, and then I will invite everybody who wants to leave, and we will have a private after party for everybody who wants to stay and just chat. So everybody mute except Craig. Craig, maybe that's you who has that noise in the background. So Craig, if you have some noise in the background like a radio, you need to turn it off now. Craig, turn off the other noise and go ahead and you can. Okay, so Sid, somebody has to mute themselves. Somebody's making some.
Not I.
And then Craig is going to close.
I don't have, if you can, if you can.
Well, Craig, we are having a connectivity issue with you. So I'm going to close the meeting. And you can hang around after for the little chat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's not working, Craig.
Raise your hand if you can.
It's
I
just.
think I'm unmuted. But I.
Connectivity with you.
Uh-oh.
So, and you can hang around after. Okie dokie. So good night, everybody. I'm so glad you could come, and you stayed till the end. Wonderful, and I'll see you again in the fall. Oh, I should do a second of shameless advertising. Hang on, I'm going to do a second of shameless advertising. Watch this.
While you're pulling that up, I'd just like to tell everybody that you can find your local Monarch Watch Conservation Specialist by just going to the Monarch Watch website. There's a live link there.
Okie dokie. All right, now I'm going to do my shameless advertising. It's Monarch season. And in Ontario, we're going to start at the end of May to look for caterpillars. So you're going to want this awesome book in the background, How to Raise Monarch Butterflies, in order to give all the young people and get them started in nature. Okay, I'm finished. Bye, everybody.
Bye, butterfly.
Bye. Thank you for coming. What's your name, Will?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Will.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Mom.
Bye. Carol, thanks for hosting this, Carol.
Yeah.
Welcome. Okay, so now that the people who have left, who wanted to leave have left, you can all put it on gallery view, and anybody can talk to anybody else about anything. This is our party, this is our social, and yeah. Who wants to get started? Great to see Karen and Steve again. Yeah, Lisa, you don't need to put up your hand. Just start talking.
Okay, can you hear me or am I on mute?
No, you're not on mute. I don't know how you got off, but
Okay.
Carol, you need to stop recording.
thank you. I'm going to stop recording, and that way we're not recording anymore.